for 9 months. And then for 2 years, this baby's going to be pulling on her for his milk, nourishment, and education to learn how to be a person. So does she have rights? Now, the baby could, grow up to be a man, and he could say, well, I have rights too. Well, you have rights, yes. But your mother has the first rights over you, so that's a limit, isn't it? And then the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, talked about the women's rights in a beautiful way, because somebody said, after Allah and His Messenger, who has the most rights on me? And look what the Prophet said. He said, your mother. He said, well, then who? He said, your mother. He said, well, then who? Your mother. And then your father. Wow. As the kids say in California, that's pretty heavy, man. That is, if you think about it. Because Islam is showing us the real respect, honor, and dignity of the parents. Your parents have the first rights after God and His Messenger. And you must give them the rights. You can't just throw them away. You can't turn them off and just say, I'm fed up with you. I listen to you now. I'm big, I'm strong, I'll go do my thing. Well, it's not in Islam, it's not acceptable behavior, and Allah will not even look at those kind of people on the Day of Judgment. I know in some societies, when people get old, they just like to get them out of the way. I don't want to see them, deal with them. They're, mentally incapacitated, physically handicapped now, they're old. Put them in an old folks' home. Put them away in an institution. I don't want to have to deal with it. It cramps my style. It's not something I want to try to deal with. Well, this is what's really happening. And how can that be? Think about it. How could it be that a child who's lived inside of his mother, was nursed by his mother, and then raised by his parents, and they sacrificed so much for that child, and now the child just turned their back and walk away like, who cares? So we can see from this what is happening in our society today. Because we don't give the rights. Because we have not adhered to these limitations. We have not really paid attention to what the limits are that go with it. Does a man have rights over his wife? Well, certainly he does. When a man gets married in Islam, there's some very important things that he has to agree to do. And so does the woman. She, in turn, is agreeing that because this man is now my husband, I want to have children with him. It's his right to have sex with his wife because, after all, how else can he get children? Think about that. And when we're talking about these rights and limits, I like to remind myself that it's Allah is the one who is the lawgiver here, not me. I'm not going to make up this religion and say, well, I like this and I like that and so and so. That's not fair. It's Allah who created me, not the other way around. So it's Allah to tell me what this life is about. And it's Allah who's going to say what's the rights and what's the limits. And now let's come back to the specific question we started about in the first segment. What about the rights of the woman in Islam? Here's another one that they give us. How come a man gets more in inheritance than a woman? For instance, if the parents die, the girl gets a lesser amount, a lesser fraction, 1/3 as opposed to the half that goes to her brother, the brother and sister. Why the girl gets less? My question to you is, do you even know how this works? Because if you did, you'd say, well, why does the woman get more? And you go, huh? Watch. We just said that a woman does not have to spend any of her money. Her assets, her wealth, her jewelry, her money are hers. And a man cannot ask for it. The father can't take it away from her. The brother can't take it away from her. Her husband cannot take it away from her. And her son can't take it away from her. It's hers. However, the males, the men, are all responsible for her. So from the inheritance they receive, they have to take care of the mother, the sister, the wife, the daughters. So all of these women are actually taking from who? From the men. So Allah has given a beautiful balance here by showing what the rights of the women are, what the limits of the women are, what the rights of the men are, what the limits of the men are. The women do obey Allah. They're devoutly obedient to Allah. And they guard, I'm going back to the verse, by the way. And they guard in their husband's absence what Allah has ordered them to guard. What do you think that is? It's talking about their chastity here, that they're not going to expose their private parts, and they're not going to make it easy for something to go bad here. And you know what I'm talking about. The verse continues, and it says, for those women where you have observed some kind of activity which is bizarre or unusual. In this case, these women, you admonish them. That's your right, it's your obligation. You have to admonish them. If they continue, then leave their beds. This is talking about your wife. Don't have sex with them. If they still are continuing, then it says, وَضْرِبُهُنَّ. And this word is translated very poorly, by the way, into English as hit. Sometimes it's translated as scourge, sometimes as beat. But in reality, the best word that I've found using the Mawrid of the English and Mawrid of the Arabic, the dictionaries, is the word strike. The word strike, and I'm going to tell you why we said that. We've talked to the scholars on this subject, and they said because this is an action, a movement of the hand, like this, which can be, as in one example, the toothstick, to make a contact no harder than that, not to strike, to hurt, to damage, but to just let her know that this is a signal that this is it. You continue on that, then I'm divorced from you. Or if that's the way you want to be, go back to your people, and that's it. Okay? Because in this motion, which I'm using here, it can be a contact or not contact. Such as, those of you familiar with baseball, you know that when a person is batting and he swings like this, it's called a strike, whether he hits the ball or not. So it's not necessary for the man to make a contact for it to still be the word daraba. That's the root, daraba. Daraba is to strike, to make a motion. But it doesn't mean to beat. It doesn't mean to scourge. It doesn't really even mean hit. It has this motion of a striking motion. And it's singular, therefore it doesn't indicate a beating as in striking and hurting anybody. Because, again, that would be contradictory to the teachings of Islam, because Islam forbids men to beat their wives. Let me give you another example from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He said, the best of you are the best to your wives, and I'm the best to my wives. He also said, and this was one of the most famous speeches he gave before he died, he said that he forbid the men to beat their women. He said, how can you beat them like animals in the day and then you want to go to them for sex at night? It doesn't work. So when you clearly hear a teaching here saying that it's forbidden for men to do such a thing, which they used to do, then don't take the Quran and try to say it's contradicting another part of the Quran or the teachings of Muhammad. It's very clear in Islam. There are rights and there are limits. And each of us have to know what our limits are as well as our rights. Let's learn more about this. Stay tuned for more programs like this. Come back here to our channel here and watch more about lifting the fog. You've been watching Lifting the Fog. And until next time, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.